It is the Banner Baseball Live Chat. Paul Mancano, Danielle Allentuck, and Andy Koska as the Orioles rock the baseball world tonight by trading for former Cy Young winner, three-time All-Star Corbin Burns. This was quite a shock to get on a Thursday night. Birdland was already in celebration mode since the sale of the team to a new ownership group led by David Rubenstein. But guys, let's start with you, Andy. What a wild, wild turn of events over the last 24 to 48 hours for Orioles fans.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I didn't expect a such a crazy week for Orioles fans, but here we are. I mean, yesterday the sale is confirmed by David Rubenstein, and here's a very large trade to solve really the one hole you kind of thought was remaining in this Orioles team. You know, the top end starting pitcher that they were very clear they wanted the entire offseason. So they got it done. That, you know, it took a while, but you know, as these things do, as you get closer to spring training, more pressure on the selling team, and here you are. Honestly, a fairly Oriole friendly deal. You didn't have to get rid of your top guys in terms of, obviously Jackson Holiday wasn't going, but Kobe Mayo didn't go, and players of that ilk.
The deal is only for the 34th overall pick in the MLB draft, lefty DL Hall, and shortstop slash second baseman slash third baseman Joey Ortiz. So you're sending a former top prospect, formerly your second best pitching prospect aside from Grayson Rodriguez. You're sending Joey Ortiz, who is a glove first infielder prospect, one of your top 10 prospects in the system. And you're sending the 34th pick in the MLB draft. Draft picks can't be traded unless they are competitive balance round picks, I believe. So that is the way that the Orioles are able to get around that and trade a draft pick. But Danielle, what did you think of the return for Corbin Burns?
Honestly, I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, we've been talking all offseason. The Orioles have a logjam in their infield, and Joey Ortiz always seemed like the likely guy to get rid of. He was only up in the majors for a little bit last year, didn't stick, never got called back up. And honestly, with Jackson Holiday coming up, there's no place for Joey Ortiz on his team anymore right now. It's the draft pick that surprises me the most, just because of how much Mike Elias loves the draft and loves building the team that way. But it's a pretty even trade, considering you're getting a former CY Young winner. He only has 1 year of team control left, which is probably why the price was a little bit lower. But it's a really good deal for the Orioles and really shows that they are going for it right now, willing to get rid of two of their major league ready prospects.
Yeah, I think in terms of what they gave up in DL Hall and Joey Ortiz, those were two guys that probably would be more valuable to other teams because DL Hall was probably going to be relegated to the bullpen. I think maybe there's a chance that Mike Elias said at the Birdland Caravan that they still view DL Hall as a starter, but you know, he probably didn't have he probably was on the outside looking in terms of the rotation for 2024. And then Joey Ortiz, who is a phenomenal prospect and can play all three defensive positions in the infield very well and was hitting in the 330s in AAA, but there was simply no room for him on this roster. But in terms of getting Corbin Burns, getting a Cy Young winner, the biggest question mark was going to be, okay, if you're going to go out and make this splurge, he's only going to be here 1 more year guaranteed, and he's going to command quite a lot if you try to extend him now. The Orioles under Mike Elias had never handed a long-term extension to any player, and they had never signed a free agent to a guaranteed multi-year deal. Of course, that was under different ownership. That was John Angelos. This is new ownership. I know it technically has not been approved by MLB yet. Could this possibly have been influenced at all, Andy, by the sale of the team to David Rubenstein?
You know, my editors are cautioning me from linking that at all. I do think there is maybe a feeling that maybe you're more comfortable with saying, hey, let's get a 1 year rental, even though Corbin has the right next year to test the entire, you know, all 30 teams can go after him next offseason. But maybe you feel that you're in a better position once the ownership deal is confirmed, to bid for his long-term future in Baltimore. Otherwise, you're betting on one hope, the Orioles hope one healthy year of Corbin Burns in Baltimore, and see how far it gets you. It wasn't, that's taking nothing against Joey Ortiz or DL Hall. I mean, DL especially could go on to be a phenomenal reliever in this game, if not starter. And so it's a big loss for this Orioles bullpen, if not rotation someday. But you do feel like maybe this ownership thing played a tiny bit of role. It is one day after it. It's impossible to truly know whether it did, but it does make for a compelling storyline.
Yeah, certainly fans are thinking it cannot be a coincidence that they go out and trade for a guy with 1 year of team control who's going to command a huge extension if you're going to be able to extend him, uh, or a huge contract in free agency and you're letting him go. So we're going to let Andy Koska go now as he prepares to do a radio hit. So it's just you and me, Danielle. In terms of the player in Corbin Burns, what are the Orioles getting here? Because he is still on the right side of 30. He is a former Cy Young winner. He is a 3-time All-Star. I think for Orioles fans who have not seen ace type starting pitching in quite a while, it feels too good to be true.
I mean, we don't know how it's going to turn out. He's only 29, so like you said, still under 30, former Cy Young winner a couple years ago. But what they're really getting is that top of the line ace starter that this team really needs. I mean, they have, the potential in Kyle Bradish and Grayson Rodriguez. They're two young guys, but when it came to the playoffs last year, nobody was able to step up to the plate. So Corbin Burns could be that guy for them that they really need this year to lead the rotation. And they desperately needed a depth. I mean, they needed a fifth starter any way they could get it. And getting a top of the line starter is only going to make them better. I mean, you have to think at this point, he's their opening day starter. They're really getting one of the best pitchers in the game. The potential is so high right now for what he can do for them.
Yeah. And we were talking about on live chats throughout the offseason, several guys would have made sense for this rotation. Dylan Cease, of course, they were linked to quite a lot. They were linked to, guys like Paul Blackburn, a lot of the trade targets around the league. And the one that seemed too good to be true, too difficult to get, and too much of a risk would be Corbin Burns. But that being said, he might be the best starting pitcher moved this entire offseason in a trade because he is still elite and he is, still one of the better pitchers in the game.
And I think that we've talked about Dylan Cease being the obtainable starter for the Orioles, which still would have been a good deal, but this is a much better option for them. The potential there is just way better. And like we said, the return to Milwaukee is really not that bad for the Orioles.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, giving up DL Hall and Joey Ortiz, who probably would not be able to contribute a whole lot to the 2024 Orioles, feels like a win. That 34th pick is interesting because the Orioles, acquired a draft pick a year ago, and they used that draft pick, I believe, to select Judd Fabian. That was in an off-season deal that might have been the Tanner Scott trade to Miami, and that's how they acquired that draft pick. But it's an interesting kind of lottery pick because, Danielle, you almost never see draft picks traded. This is an Orioles team that has built its foundation off of draft picks, and here they are not just giving away 2 homegrown talents and 2 top prospects, but also giving away another shot at another one in a draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, that's kind of the part of this trade that shocks me the most, because Elias loves his draft picks, especially ones that high. He's had incredible success with that. I mean, look at this top farm system, but if they are going to be a win now team, they have to be willing to part with some of the things that they love with their draft picks, their top prospects like DL Hall. It's just what they have to do at this point to get these deals done.
Yeah, it is just a shocking change of philosophies for Mike Elias, but for good reason, because over the last year and a half, they have transformed themselves into competitors. And Mike Elias, the question was going to be, he spent all this time and all these resources investing in the farm system and putting his heart and soul into it. And when is he going to be able to part with some of these top guys? You know, the trade for Jack Flaherty last trade deadline, sure, they gave up Drew Rom and they gave up Cesar Prieto. But those are two guys that, you know, had even less of a chance to influence the big league team in 2024 than DL Hall and Joey Ortiz.
And that trade kind of completely flopped for the Orioles. I mean, Flaherty was supposed to be a starter in their rotation, was not by any means a top of the line starter, but could have been their 4th or 5th guy, maybe even started a playoff game once John Means wasn't able to pitch in those because of his elbow. But, you know, that trade didn't work. And they got Shintaro Fujinami as well, who was a reliever who also did not play out great for the Orioles. So they're going bigger this time. They're giving up more this time, but they're getting somebody with the track record who can do it now and be the person they need right away.
Yeah. So you slot him into this rotation. I mean, think given his history, given his, Cy Young Award and his 3 All-Star appearances, I think it's safe to say he's going to be your opening day starter. But right behind him is going to be Kyle Bradish, who put together an ace type season and earned himself some Cy Young votes in 2023.
I think the difference for me right now is that Corbin Burnes has the longevity of his career to prove it. I mean, Kyle Bradish did it for last year and was great for the Orioles, but we don't know for sure yet if he can repeat it or, you know, how he's going to be this year. So I would still slot Corbin Burnes as my opening day starter, Grayson Rodriguez or Kyle Bradish as your day 2, game 3 person.
Right. And you look at, beyond that, you have Grayson Rodriguez going as maybe your number 3. You have John Means maybe as your number 4. The number 5 spot could be Kramer, as you said. So you are filling out that rotation. We talked about. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you still have the option of Tyler Wells being in a rotation. We don't know where he's going to fit in yet. He was stellar in the first half last year.
And we were slightly concerned, I think you could say, on our last live chat when Mike Elias said along the Birdland Caravan that there was a possibility that they wouldn't add anybody to that starting rotation after they had talked about it being a need. And little did we know that Mike Elias, when he said he was working the phones, was he really meant it. He had the Corbin Burnes trade up his sleeve. So the fact that they are addressing their biggest need this offseason after signing Craig Kimbrell to a 1-year, $13 million deal is a massive development for this organization that is looking to go not just from AL East champions, but be legitimate World Series contenders.
Right. And I mean, I think that we've both said if they didn't get a starter this offseason, it would have been a disappointment. It would have been, you know, a bad offseason for them. This was obviously before the new ownership, which it's obviously already escalates how this offseason has been for them. But, you know, they got not just a regular starter, a top of the line starter, somebody who they can rely on right away. It gives them so many options for Tyler Wells to be able to keep him in the bullpen and to be able to, you know, if they need him to be their closer, if they need him to fill in for a night, you know, they have so many more options now, just knowing that they have another starter available.
Yeah, absolutely. It fills a hole now that I think had they not gone out and gotten this guy, I think come the trade deadline, that would have been priority number 1. We talked about on our last chat how the Texas Rangers got all the way to a World Series title based on the depth of their starting pitching. It wasn't just the top end guys. They kept acquiring pitchers. They went out and traded for Max Scherzer. They went depth upon depth upon depth. The Orioles ran into that in the ALDS. They faced them firsthand, and they saw just how deadly a rotation that deep can be in the playoffs. Now they have something that is close to rivaling that. Where, Danielle, would you put the Orioles in terms of rotations around baseball, or at least in the American League East, with the top 5 guys that they have lined up right now?
It's a hard question because the rotation is young. I mean, we have 2 starters in Kyle Bradish and Grayson Rodriguez who, you know, haven't proven themselves for more than 1 major league season yet. Kyle Bradish pitched at a very high level last year. Grayson Rodriguez, when he came back up from the majors halfway through the year, pitched at a very high level. John Means, when he came back from Tommy John surgery, looked great, pitched into the seventh in 2 of his 4 outings. But we don't know for sure what he's going to look like this year. I mean, when he come back from Tommy John surgery, he says his elbow is fine, but you never know until they're back in game action every 5 days. So I think it's a little hard to judge. I think if all factors go right, I think that they would probably have one of the best in the division, maybe top 10 at least in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I think it's a whole lot better than the projected rotation without Corbin Burns. And
Right.
it really launches itself, I think, from middle of the pack in terms of baseball to, I would definitely say, top 10. I'd have to go through every rotation, but it is certainly one of the better rotations in all of baseball when you slot Corbin Burns to the top of that. Again, we are live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, and we can take your comments and questions as we go along, as we react to the Orioles' shocking trade for Corbin Burns here on this Thursday night. And Danielle, got Andy's thoughts on it, but I want to get your thoughts on the coincidence factor. The fact that the Orioles sell the team, John Angelos agrees to sell the team in a deal that is not finalized to David Rubenstein and company, an ownership that certainly on the outside, given the net wealth of some of these owners, is poised to spend more than the Orioles did under John Angelos. So now they have seemingly more cash at their disposal on the near horizon. Do you think that it was a factor at all that they're acquiring for Corbin Burns, who would require an extension if you want him beyond 2024?
I think there's no way to know. I mean, it could be a coincidence. This could have been in the work for days. I mean, these things don't usually happen in one night, maybe even 2 nights. They take, a long time to go through. You have to remember that this new ownership is not official yet. They still have to get the approval of MLB owners. And while owners are meeting next week, this will probably not be put up to a vote until the next ownership meeting in the next quarter. So there's no way to really know at this point if there's any correlation there, but maybe on their end, and maybe he was a little more willing to go, knowing that, there could be long-term extension possibility here for so long there was not. I mean, like we've said, Mike Elias has never extended a player like that, but I think that there's no way to know yet.
Yeah, I think I'm fascinated to see over the next coming weeks and months as we eventually have the new ownership group introduced to us formally in a press conference. And of course, the proof will be in the pudding. If the Orioles do extend Corbin Burns in the next few weeks, few months before spring training gets underway or before opening day gets to us, that will be a major piece of the rotation that they will have locked down for years to come. And that will tell us a lot about how they could be handing out deals under this brand new ownership group. In terms of the pitcher himself and Corbin Burns, put up a 3.5 baseball reference WAR last year with a 3.39 ERA, won the Cy Young Award in 2021. He's entering his age 29 season. He's been an all-star each of the last 3 years. And Danielle, it's rare that pitchers this good, this young are ever available for you to get. One other pitcher I think that the Orioles could have tried to trade for this offseason was Shane Bieber with Cleveland. And he certainly has that big game ability and he has a Cy Young Award, but his periphery numbers have certainly been on the decline. Corbin Burns very much appears to be right in the prime of his career. And at 29 years old, could have very well another string of all-star games in front of him.
And the thing that stands out to me, I mean, you look at his actual pitching stats and they're great. And, the pitch arsenal that he brings to them, but his durability has been really impressive. He pitched 202 innings in 2022, 193 in 2023. And that's what really hurt the Orioles rotation last year, was that none of them had been able to pitch a full season into the playoffs. But you have a guy now who can do it and who has shown all season that he can maintain the same level of durability for them.
Yeah. Now you look at what the Orioles are able to hold on to by not trading away some of their top prospects in this deal. I think when the news broke that the Orioles were nearing a trade, I think some fans looked at the top prospect list and were prepared to lose a few guys, but they end up keeping their top 2 outfield prospects. They end up keeping Heston Kjerstad and Colton Cowser. You look down the road for this franchise right now. After the 2025 season, Cedric Mullins and Austin Hayes are scheduled to become free agents. For the Orioles to be able to hold on to Kjerstad, to be able to hold on to Cowser, Kobe Mayo is not involved in this deal. Feels like it wasn't a massive risk for the Orioles.
Right. And I mean, like we've said, they're losing DL Hall, which, he has huge upside. You don't know what's going to come out of him. You don't know if he could potentially be their closer in a year or two. So that one, probably of the parts of this deal, is probably what may end up hurting him the most. But, they're setting themselves up well for the future. They still have the number 1 farm system in baseball. They're not pulling from their depth too much. They still have other guys who can slot into these positions. So they're setting themselves up for longevity here and for the option to, have first grab at extending Corbin Burns, which, if he had gone and been a free agent after next year, if he had stayed with Milwaukee, they may not actually have a shot at him. So this gives them a better chance of keeping him long-term and giving him a starter long-term.
Thinking back on it, we heard from Mike Elias at the Caravan, and afterwards, I think there might have been some frustration from Orioles fans who were expecting a little bit more action. I look back on that, and Mike Elias might have given us a couple hints that those 2 guys in DL Hall and Joey Ortiz were going to be in this deal, because when asked about Joey Ortiz, he did say, I expect he will get a lot more big league playing time in 2024. I thought that was interesting because I was looking at the roster and I didn't see a path to a ton of big league playing time for Joey Ortiz. And he also said he viewed DL Hall as a starter. And I was looking at the rotation and saying, it's not a lot of room for DL Hall in this rotation right now. So maybe Mike Elias was giving us just a slight hint as to who was going to be in this deal.
And I do remember specifically asking him how many people he considers starters. And I think the answer changed. He went on this long speech. He started for a number. He went on a long speech, and then there was a different number at the end. So,
yeah, it included Cole Irvin in that list, Tyler Wells, of course. There were certainly a number of candidates that would have made sense for that number 5 spot in the rotation. But now you don't really have to worry about that if you're Mike Elias to start the year, because, Dean Kramer has shown he can be a very good big league pitcher. If he takes that 5 spot, if Tyler Wells beats him out, like you mentioned, Danielle, somebody who was the best pitcher in the Orioles rotation for the first half of last year, it's just a whole lot easier to say, all right, we're going to take one of these guys, not 2 of these guys in our rotation. And this trade also clears a little bit of a log jam behind it, clearing out DL Hall. The question with DL Hall, though, is, had he been in your rotation on opening, or not in your rotation, in your bullpen on opening day, that would have been an ace kind of weapon to be used, lefty out of the bullpen for Brandon Hyde. Now, what does Brandon Hyde and Mike Elias, who gets that last spot in the bullpen that would have been occupied by lefty DL Hall?
I mean, we don't know yet. I mean, I think that there's some options that will come out of spring training. I mean, I think Dylan Tate, you have to add him back into the mix this year. He says he's fully healthy. I would imagine this means that Tyler Wells is in the bullpen and not in the rotation on opening day, unless he comes into spring looking really strong and durable and able to take back a starting spot. You've got a couple lower down options, and Michael Baumann, he could come up. Perez is pretty much a lock for this team. So they have a lot of options. The Orioles are also very good at their under the radar Ryer pickups. That's how they got Danny Coulomb at the end of last spring training. So I don't think that the guys in the bullpen are necessarily set as of right now. I mean, I don't expect them to go out and make another move to get another arm. But there could be a couple smaller moves that come through, or, a couple of under the radar spring training invites who come and take that spot.
Absolutely. And like you said, there's the domino effect of Tyler Wells potentially being a pitcher that they end up using out of the bullpen. Maybe he takes that final spot. But the Orioles pitching staff in general looks a whole lot better after tonight, after the Orioles trade for Corbin Burnes, former Cy Young winner, 3-time All-Star, as they make a major splash to add to their rotation. And Danielle, we will have you completely covered for the final 2 weeks of the offseason Spring training is right around the corner in Sarasota. The BaltimoreBanner.com keeps you covered with Danielle's coverage, with Andy's coverage. You can subscribe $1 for 6 months. Follow Danielle on Twitter at @D_Allentuck. Andy was at AF Casca, still is. I am at Paul Mancano and at All Banner Sports. Thanks so much for tuning in. Birdland, you get a gift in Corbin